All right, so it's recording. All right, so like I was telling you before, there are a lot of moms who I feel like went to the doctor or had like this idea of having a natural birth, going to the like having certain situations that maybe sent them to a medical professional person, an OB or a midwife or whatever, and were told things, and then it kind of like shifting them to a whole different like birth plan.
Change
like,
their whole game up. Yeah.
So, okay, so when I reached out to you, you were saying like you would be happy to dispel some of this fear, which I think that's the biggest part of it is like women being fearful or like, because we've been programmed for so long to take what the medical people say is like law or like that's like sit end all. Like we gotta do this, we gotta. And while it can be beneficial, it doesn't need to be everything. Like it doesn't need to consume like our whole like thoughts and beliefs around like our bodies. And so I guess I just wanted to like how your story started out. You started with you had an OB, huh? In the beginning, that's who you went with. And so just like sharing some of how your story went and like how that helped you and how you like were able to stand in like what you really believed even after what they told you.
So like part of what you said is like it's really good for diagnosing.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. So I didn't understand a lot about conception. Like I figured you have sex, you don't pull out, you have a baby. So me and my husband tried. It felt like a year, for about a year. And then when we didn't get pregnant, I went to my OB and we did an ultrasound and they found fibroids. But I was encouraged to get a second opinion because she wanted me to have she wanted me to have surgery. And at first I was like right away. Like she did the ultrasound and she said that she felt fibroids, but we hadn't even gotten the ultrasound results back. And she was like, surgery. I was like, well,
okay, so like first of all,
let's wait.
She didn't talk about your diet, like what are you eating, what are you feeding your body,
and I asked all those questions.
Fibroids,
like none of that. My first thing, I was like, because my first question was like, is it a structure problem? Like, is there something preventing conception? Like, am I missing pieces? Like something that I didn't think I could naturally correct. And that's when she kind of like started pushing for a second opinion because she's like, you're not listening. Like, you want me to tell you what you want to hear. That was really her attitude. Like, you want me to tell you something other than surgery, and I can't do that. So I get the second opinion, same scans, but they have different interpretations of what they saw. Like, he's like, you have 3 large fibroids. She's like, you have 1 large fibroid. He's saying that they're higher up, and she's saying it's sitting in the entrance.
So was it black? Was she saying like where it was blocking how?
Was blocking the sperm from getting pregnant into the tubes.
And he was saying it was.
And he was saying that even if I got pregnant, I would be able to carry because the fibroids would prevent growth.
Wow. Yeah.
So they're saying 2 completely different things. But they're both pushing for the same thing. They're both saying you need this myomectomy. This was probably like June. Yeah, this was around June. So of course I started doing the research. I started talking to people, and then I learned that fibroids, spiritually they say fibroids are caused from like unbirthing desires and ideas.
Right.
Like that had a lot to do with like not letting or not sticking to plans and letting them come to. Yeah. I'm asking her to do more testing. I'm asking for a different type of ultrasound because the first one was on my belly, and I'm like, can't you go inside and do an ultrasound? Like more. Like I want to be able to visually see what's happening. So then part of me was like, I could meditate and I can clear it out. Like, but I need to see what I'm dealing with. Yeah. She would not schedule any other ultrasounds. But she was like, December 4th is when you're having the surgery. Yeah. And so me and my husband are like, all right, we'll schedule the surgery. But the whole time we're like,
Not really
we're
feeling
not doing this. We're not doing this. So then I found out about the Goddess Collection teas. Her posters or flyers used to be in Ital, like on the counter. So I got the fibroid fighter, I got the baby boom, and I got my husband the sperm vitality.
Mm-hmm.
And then did some research about diet. So estrogen, they say, increases fibroids.
Yeah. So changed up your eating, like, you know, paying attention to what foods had more estrogen, things like that.
Yeah, being really aware of that. Because before I was vegan, but I wasn't plant-based.
Mm-hmm.
So I was still eating all
all the vegan food,
all the French fries, all the like a pretty bad vegan, like Oreos, like just not eating animals, but not truly eating healthy. So 6 months on the teas, pretty strict doctor Sebi diet.
Yeah.
For those 6 months. And the whole time I'm messaging this lady, this doctor, because I decided to go with her instead of the second opinion, just because she's a Black woman. And I'm asking her, like, can we monitor? Like, I wanted to know if what I was doing was having any type of effect. And she was just like, your insurance isn't going to cover this, blah, 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 blah. All these reasons not to do it. And I'm like, I don't care about my insurance.
What she was telling you, the insurance wasn't going to cover what? Like,
a second ultrasound without it being medically necessary. Like, it wasn't medically necessary. I've had these 2 doctors, these 2 consults. They told me what I needed to do. This is what I need to do. So I show up the day for surgery after 6 months of clean eating, drinking the tea, my husband's drinking the tea. And I think I also went back to yoga. Like, I think I got really buckled down with fitness too. Yeah.
I remember you sharing like a little bit, like, I've been drinking teas, I've been doing this, doing that, like, and I didn't realize it was that long, like 6 months. That's a good time to, like, and that's the thing, giving your body that time to even just process what's going on. Like, if the fibroids were there, they've been there already. So it's not like, oh, I'm not getting out next week. Like,
yeah.
Let me just see what, you know, and what I feel about, like, even if you had went that route, it's just crazy that they rush things so much.
And so
like, she made it like an emergency.
And even with that, so she originally said December we'll schedule the surgery. She calls me, or I probably called her to ask for another ultrasound. And she rebuttals, I could move your surgery up. And I'm like, no, no, thank you. So I show up the day of surgery, and I'm still like, I don't know if I'm doing this. Like, these people are about to be mad. But in my head, I'm like, if I get there, maybe I can push for this ultrasound. I know she has to check. She can't just cut me open, right? Like, she has to. And the blood test and the urine test, they were like, you're pregnant.
Yeah.
And then the whole time she was telling me to be careful. Like, you and your husband need to practice, like, safe sex.
Not getting. So you don't get pregnant?
The whole thing was so confusing.
But then like, only the other guy said if you get pregnant, it would like affect how the baby's carried. But she only said it would affect you getting pregnant. So
she was like, I could not get pregnant unless I had this fibroid removed.
That's so confusing. So okay, if you can't get pregnant, then what are you telling me to practice safe sex for and like don't get pregnant?
That was my whole thing.
So yeah, that would make me think that, like, you know, they scare women first of all with the fibroid, and you need to have the surgery. The surgery is a big check for her. Like a huge check.
Big check.
So yeah, she wanted to take your fibroids out and be your OB and collect more money from you when you went to birth with her.
Because if I had the fibroid surgery, got pregnant, I would have to have a C-section.
Yeah.
Because the uterus had already been cut into.
Right. Oh.
So it would be like a VBAC.
Yep.
And they don't. That's not safe.
That's a lot of money.
So she would have had 2 major surgeries out of me in like a year span. And then after the surgery, she had already planned up 3 follow-up visits for ultrasounds. It's like, so I can have an ultrasound every 3 months after the surgery, but I couldn't have it
Yeah.
before.
Wow. So you went in and was pregnant already. So they couldn't do the take your fibroids out thing.
Couldn't do the surgery. Sent me home,
that
and I'm
was
like,
so
I text you almost immediately, like, I'm pregnant. And so I had to have been like a week pregnant.
Yeah.
So if I would have
earlier
moved
you
the
could.
surgery to November,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had the baby
Yeah.
because I would be in recovery.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh.
Like my baby.
She knew.
Yeah.
She knew how she wanted to come before she was in your womb. Like it was like, nope, you're not getting out.
I got you, mommy. Don't even worry about it. Like these bitches tripping. Mommy's cup. Like I got you, mommy.
So how did she? Okay, so you went for that.
I found out I was pregnant, and it was like even the energy around her telling me I was pregnant. Like I've been coming to you or talking to you for 6 months. You know me, and my husband have been trying for a year before that,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like, girl, guess what? It was like surgery has to be canceled because you're pregnant. It's like I couldn't even tell if I should be happy because of the way the message was delivered. Like, is this good? Like, are we good? But then that is what like so we've already been like I'm not doing flu shots. I'm not like this medical system is bullshit. Like we've already had that type of like energy and feel. But after that experience,
Yeah.
it was like y'all really don't know shit.
Yeah.
Like you guys have told me two different things. You guys are looking at the same pictures with different interpretations. You tell me I can't do something, my body did it.
Yeah.
Like y'all really don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important for us to know ourselves. You know, like get back to knowing and trusting ourselves and our bodies. Like these bodies weren't just thrown together. Like they really weren't just thrown together.
No.
And so
but even with the fibroid, once and so that was another thing. Like she was trying to show me like I could feel the fibroid. And I was like really chubby and then lost weight. So I just thought it was like abs. Like I'm like, oh shit. Like I just thought it was abs because it was hard. But like the rest of my stomach was hard. But through drinking the tea, like when I look back, I can look at pictures and see where it got flatter.
Yeah.
So even without, I wanted the confirmation. I wanted the validation through the ultrasound. But I didn't really need it. When I stopped and like really look, I didn't really need it. Like I could see the change in my body.
Yeah.
And that was enough. And then I got pregnant.
Yeah.
So that was, you know. But then I had to fight the fear of what the second man said. Like you won't be able to carry full term.
Yeah. And I remember asking you like, what is the doctor saying about the baby? Like when it comes time to birth? Because then you ask her like, when is it in the way of when it's time for my baby to come out? Will she have problems getting out? What did she tell you about that?
So I think she started to pick up on like my distress.
Yeah.
Because she wanted me to do the glucose test. And I was like, not doing that. Like, no, ma'am. And she's like trying to explain to me why it's necessary. And I'm trying to tell her about my lifestyle and how it's absolutely not necessary. And then all the blood that they were drawing, like a lot of those tests I would refuse. So she got to the point where she was like, I see you. And I think she really started to get it. So I was asking her, I was like, if I wanted a natural birth, do you guys have like water tubs and stuff available? Because it's Oshner.
Yeah.
Sorry. So they have like a birthing thing. So I kept trying to talk like I was interested in the birthing center so that maybe she would answer my questions more honestly. Like if I wanted to have a water birth, do you see that being possible? And she kept saying things like, I would support you in that decision, but we would be prepared for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And she said the biggest concern was bleeding, and if the fibroid was where she originally thought it was, she said it would block the canal. But I'm already like, You said it would block the canal before. It didn't.
Yeah.
I don't feel it anymore. Um, and when I would get the 20-week scan,
Mm-hmm.
they never mentioned a fibroid.
They didn't even talk about it.
No. They talked about her amniotic fluid.
Yeah.
And then that's when I was like, I'm not getting no more
Yeah.
ultrasound.
Because they kept changing up. I remember I was actually telling you, like, shouldn't we talk about that? And I'm like, well, if it was such a big deal, like, why wouldn't they want to tell you?
Yeah.
And then I think, because you said you kind of changed up, like, the appointments you would cancel and stuff, and she probably started getting the feeling like, oh, she's probably, like, not feeling. And I think that overall doctors kind of want you to, well, doctors, we're just going to talk about OBs and midwives. They just want you to go along with their plan. Like, this is how things are going to go. You know, like, because it's like they may have, I don't even know if they get anxiety or if it's really just about the check for them. They might have this thing of like, well, if this goes wrong, we want to be able to get your baby. And so, okay, and if you don't go it this way, then it may end up, you know, being this other way. But that's not for you to decide. Like, this is my body, so I still can choose to come to you.
Yeah.
You know, or make this decision if I want to. And when you start asking questions and stuff, they just kind of like, I don't know if they get offended. Because I'm like, why are you upset? At the end of the day, you can go home to your family. I'm going home to me and my problems that you just told me that I had, right? Like, so what are you upset about?
Like,
like, what is the problem?
And so she was, like, she had gotten all these awards and accolades for being, like, a fibroid specialist.
Yeah.
She takes care of the black, like, she's, like, this big deal. And so I guess to have
It's so funny. Because I just recently had
me,
a mom over and I was just looking at her the whole time like, I don't know who you are.
I know who you are.
And I was like, thank you. No.
And then if you, like, Google her C-section rate is higher than the national average. And the national average is already ridiculous. So it's like, you really go hard for
And the
this.
thing about that is that she's a brown woman, like a black woman. So people will go to her like the client I had, you know, just thinking like, oh, I have this black woman. She's gonna be like, at the end of the day, she's an OB and she's trained to work
a doctor,
like all the other medical people, you know. So it's even deeper than, and that's why it was so important for you to believe and trust in yourself before just being like, you know, well, she said it's okay. I'm gonna just do it, you know, and because that's how some moms could be going to, you know, just trusting that she's gonna have my best interest because she's a black woman. She's gonna have hers first.
Yeah.
And do what she's trained to do, which is C-sections and surgeries.
And then it's also like remembering, like, a lot of us identify, like, if you ask me, I'm a black mom, I'm a black wife, I'm a black therapist. She's a doctor. Yeah. Like, no, I'm a doctor. Yeah. I care about my community, but I'm a doctor 1st. Mm-hmm. I don't identify like that. Yeah. So that makes it different. Yeah. And so it was easy to trust myself because of how much they had already fumbled.
Mm-hmm. And you yourself knowing it didn't make sense.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, maybe it's like a little cocky too, but it's like, yeah, you have your schooling, but I have mine.
Yeah, like I'm okay.
I can read research. Like, I understand what this chart is saying. Like, I understand.
And that's the thing. I think
like,
they may be things that we don't. I remember when I was pregnant with Kamala when I went, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this, this, this. And then they would say, okay, well, this week, they were telling me the whole plan, like how all your checkups are going to go. And I would just come back and be like, okay, I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to do this. And at the end of the conversation, like midway through, the lady just stopped and was like, do you have a medical background? And I was like, I really wanted to just say no, but I'm like, yeah, I actually worked for the place where I was going, like under that network. And she was like, oh, okay. After that, she made everything simple. But I remember being like upset too, because I'm like, well, that doesn't, why do other moms have to go through that? Like, yeah, making you feel like you don't know or like that you shouldn't know this about your body. This is my job to know this about your body. Like, yeah, why wouldn't I want to? And that's why it's so important to know, because they literally can tell you anything and you will end up being there getting surgery after surgery, or just believing that your body can't do
surgery after surgery. Never had surgery a day of my life, and now I'm about to schedule or sign up for 2 in a year. Like, but I think it's that pedestal thing. Like, they put themselves on the pedestal. They want you to look up to them. Like, you know best. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna follow your lead wherever you take me. And when you start to question that, they're like,
like
Yeah.
for you.
No one has time for this. And then it always felt like my questions were always met with like frustration or like checking your watch. Oh, so this was supposed to be a 15-minute, but my questions are making it 20. Now you're mad.
So disrespectful, and you're paying them like they're working for you.
You
That's
work
the thing.
for me. Yeah.
That's the thing that I'm starting to see even more clearly is like how rude they can be to you. Like, one of the things too, I remember when I was pregnant with Luz, when I would go to this, I think a certain day when I would go to my appointments, like one day off the week, it would be like clinic day. So like intern people would work there. So I would have to wait a long time. I remember one day I was in that waiting room for so long. And then when I went, I had that conversation about all the things I'm not going to do. And she was like, wait, oh, you work for Tulane. You don't have to come on this day anymore. You can come on this day. You won't have to wait as long. And I'm like, why does any woman have to come in here and wait this long? Like, why does anybody have to? It made me so angry. And like, I guess all that built up, like after I went through all those appointments and then had him, I'm like, I'm not going to sit in nobody's office, like, at all. Because just the level of they don't respect a lot of your time, anything. And like sometimes
Like,
they
where
respect
else
your
is
time.
that okay?
Right. Depending on what insurance you may have, they have a little more. Okay, this person actually has a job. They're working. They are getting. So they might have a little bit more respect for your time. But then you go back and ask questions, and they're just like, "Oh wait." Mm-hmm.
And then
like too much.
It's the pandemic or whatever. So I would have to go by myself. Like, you're already separating me from my husband. You're already making me show up by myself. Like, I'm not going to feel bullied.
Yeah.
And if anything, you would want my husband because he's going to keep me calmer. Because I'm telling you no. No explanation, no justification. No. I'm like, no. And we're staring at each other now. But after I came back pregnant, I probably saw her. I probably only went to like 3 prenatal visits, but I only saw her one of those.
The pandemic thing started, and then you were doing like virtual. They had switched to virtual, so you ended up being like didn't even have to go or something, right?
Well, yeah. Or I would refuse to go and would say I'll do it virtually. Yeah, like I would be like I'm not going. And so, but that kind of like worked out in my favor because they thought like, oh, she's really concerned about the pandemic, and it's like actually, I'm just not fucking with y'all. Like I'm not going.
Yeah, it works out because sometimes it can get a little aggressive and like call and be like, why aren't you coming to the appointment? Like start to question you and it gets more crazy.
But yeah, so I would be like, I'll do a virtual. And that way I don't have to do a cervical check. I don't have to get an ultrasound. I don't have to do any of these things. But my fear would always be if I didn't comply enough, then DCFS could get involved.
Yeah.
And that's why I really love the virtual visits because, like, no, I'm showing up as safely as I think, as I can. But yeah, y'all aren't touching me anymore.
And then, so now you're pregnant and you're thinking, like, if your baby's growing and not able to grow, I don't know, like, in a healthy way because of the fibroids. So how did you get through that? Like, how did you?
The 20-week scan, yeah, I think spiritually, and I felt like a really strong connection with Zola.
Yeah.
So like the 20-week scan, I got an ultrasound, and because I really wanted to know what she was. And I'm looking at her on the screen, and in my head, I'm thinking like, oh, her legs are, because she had her legs like folded up, and I'm like, oh, my baby can't move around. And like the moment I have that thought, Zola like stretches her legs out, and she like, and I'm like, my baby's fine. This baby is perfectly fine. And then that was it for me. Like, that's all I needed. And then I was so big. Yeah. By 20 weeks, I looked like 30. Like, I was so big.
Well, maybe.
No, I was so big. The picture that of us in the kitchen, and you're like,
oh, how many weeks were you? You were in your 20 weeks there?
I was probably like 25, 26 weeks.
Yeah, it was about 30 weeks.
I was so big. And so that, yeah. And then she was active. And she made me so hungry. So
So
I was
you just
like,
never even let it get to you, and that's the thing. I guess you doing your own, just tuning to yourself and doing your own spiritual work and feeling that connection more than anything to your baby first.
allowing like
Then allowing that, because that could have just been something that they planted in your brain, and really it's all about you just feeding that fear, like, oh, my baby's not gonna have this, so I'm gonna go to this appointment because I want to be sure that she's growing. Okay, I'm gonna go another 2 weeks to check. Like that would just be feeding that the whole time. You just focused in on my baby. Literally told me she's fine because you had that thought structure like out. You saw it was,
and then just
you're
like
feeling her and just
because if it were up to them, I would have gone ultrasounds every month because of the fibroid.
So they would have just been monitoring that. Well, they said it was be monitoring.
They said they were going to be monitoring that. I didn't get an ultrasound the first 20 weeks. I got the 20, no. I got one ultrasound in the first 20 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't supposed to be an ultrasound. That was supposed to be the listening device.
Mm-hmm.
But they couldn't hear her.
So they did ultrasound. That's it.
But when I think back to that, it's like, yeah, they were supposed to use the Doppler. But when I look back to that, it's like, that was more fear. Like, oh my God, we can't hear you. Don't want to alarm you, but we're going to.
Yeah, but it is alarming me. Y'all know that that's going to alarm moms.
You know I'm scared. I walked in here and told you I didn't want an ultrasound today. Like, you knew. So then I didn't go back for 20 weeks. Got the 20-week scan. And just the energy, like just feeling like I don't want them touching me. I don't want my baby to hear them. I don't I don't want any of this. Yeah, I don't want any of this. Yeah. So like I would do the virtual, but I would have like Sade playing on my record player. So hoping like the baby can only hear Sade and not the computer. Like I was like really serious about y'all not touching us anymore. And they didn't. That's important, and they did not. No. And even during birth, do you remember like there was a moment when I was like, what if she can't get through?
Yeah.
But she was already through.
That was just your transition phase. I remember because you were so chill for the most part through your whole labor. Only when you asked that, Zola was out maybe within an hour. I feel like after you said it, so it was literally just your point of reaching that transition phase.
I was like, these contractions are so real. And then I reached down and I was like, ain't this a head? But it was her sack. But it was like, it was something, like I could feel something. And I was like, oh, she already made it through when they said she wouldn't make it through.
Yep.
So now I just gotta wait for her to feel like coming.
So you had never told her your plan to birth at home, right?
No.
Yeah, it was none of her business. So she didn't know. But you had asked her about birthing. She said like your baby can come through. Like it's really nothing. She said will block her, but we'll be prepared for her.
Yeah. She said she was like, and that was the thing. So at the 20,
no, and maybe she was just telling you.
Didn't want to tell me no. Like she didn't want me to know there was a green light. But so at the 20-week scan where the tech never mentioned a fibroid, like never said anything about a fibroid. I was like, wouldn't she say something? Like if it was an issue, wouldn't she say something? And I even asked the doctor because I never thought like she didn't do the 20-week scan. I had to send her a message after it. And I was like, the tech didn't mention the fibroid. Do you see it on my scans? Like, how do you think the positioning is? Because that's what she kept saying, the positioning. Yeah. And she was like, I know you want to have a natural birth. I'll support you in that. We'll just be prepared. Like, she never said yes or no. She just kept saying, we'll be prepared. And it's like.
So my thought is that being prepared means that she's not going to tell you no. And her plan maybe is to, when you go in labor, first of all, if you even got to labor, because if you had maybe followed her, she maybe in your 30-something weeks would have
said
decided,
she's carrying too big.
Yeah, let's just change and let's schedule your induction or let's schedule your C-section. Or if you had just went into labor naturally, went there, and then
it took too long because I was in labor all day.
Yeah.
So for them, would that have been too long?
For them, you would have definitely, they would have been like, oh, well, baby's doing this, and we're just gonna have to get you a C-section, or I think it would have ended in a C-section, honestly. With her, like with that doctor, like if you had
it would
went
have
with
ended
that,
in
it
a
would have ended.
C-section.
Yeah,
For sure. Like that's definitely what she wanted. Like,
and you had no problems carrying Zola. Like Zola never gave you like never was like, oh, you're too small, you're measuring too small. You always felt her moving. You had an appetite, like you ate, you took your herbs.
Never had morning sickness. Never threw up. Not once. My whole pregnancy.
Yeah.
Like Zola was about that. Like she came ready.
Time for labor.
The same thing. Like
the same thing. It was a straightforward labor. Mm-hmm. Like everything happened the way labor would happen.
Like a textbook. Except of course I didn't know that. Like you kept me pretty grounded. But yeah. But I do think had I not had that type of community that we have, it would have been a lot different.
Yeah.
Because even some of my nearest and dearest like text me was like, how many centimeters are you dilated? It's like, I don't fucking know. Like how?
Because that's like the basic thing.
I don't know.
You know, everybody knows at this certain point, like, oh, check your centimeters, and it's like, no, we don't need to.
And so, without the community that demonstrates like home births are options and they're safe and they happen, I don't know if I would have moved the same way. Like I might have wanted to, but I don't know if I would have moved the same way.
Because fear is like a
yeah.
Major, like that's oh my gosh. Like we were just talking about it, it's like it's cringe because it's your first baby, and I think that the medical system they know how vulnerable a pregnant woman is,
or they think like the pain. I kept hearing like when that pain hits, you'll be asking for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
When that first contraction hits.
Yeah.
And then that like trips you up because I kept thinking like, oh, it's got to get worse.
Maybe it helps us too because I thought that too. Maybe it helps in a way because it's like it's gonna get worse. I can deal with it, and then like
it doesn't get worse.
It doesn't. I don't know what in our brains, like how bad do we actually think it's gonna like to the point where
the screaming and the cursing your partner out and the how am I doing this, like yeah, like it just really makes you feel like this can't, it's got to get worse than this, it's gonna hurt, like you're gonna pass out from pain. Like, but I'm sipping coconut water right now, like so it's got to get worse. Yeah.
And I have people around me who actually love me, and I'm in a loving environment.
And it doesn't get worse.
It doesn't get worse. It may get worse for people who are, I don't know, not grounded or go into a space that they already just don't really feel right in, but have no like concept of like what else it could be like. You know, like so I'm just gonna go to this hospital and it's cold and it's like full of radiation, full of just unnatural things. So yeah, it may feel
the constant beeping, the constant monitoring. And then the thing about that is like they don't move in a way that brings you comfort. Right. Like we're checking this and we're scribbling it down and we're rushing out the room, but we're not communicating with you. We're not telling you anything.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's so beautiful and like staying
trash. Just
you standing in your own and with them, like with it being like a situation like that. Like I feel like they started before you actually conceived the baby, like before Zoe was actually in your body, they had already started working on you. Like, oh, you have this fibroid, you have to get this surgery before your body can get pregnant. Whereas like your body shows you, no, I got pregnant before you used your knife on me, and you carried your baby full term. Like, when did you birth Zola? Was that your 39? What week were you in?
It was like 39 because the due date was her due date was August 11th. She was born August 6th.
And you basically carried your baby full term with this fibroid that they told you would block her, prevent her from growing. Maybe when you went into labor, your contractions. I know one of the things they say with women with fibroids.
The contractions wouldn't be powerful enough.
Powerful enough to actually, be effective. So you may have, which even if they weren't, it would probably just be a longer labor, but your body can still do it. But I feel like most women would just like, oh, like just take that and say, oh, they're not powerful powerful enough to get my baby out, so I have to go for this.
And I need the help.
You
I need
know?
the support. And so that was one of the things that my mom said to me. She was like, she basically was like advocating for me to go to the doctor. And I'm like, I got this. Like, they told me I couldn't conceive. I conceived. They told me I couldn't carry. At this time, I was probably like 38 weeks. I was like, I got this. And she was like, you need to humble yourself. And I was like, humble myself? I'm fucking magic. I'm not humbling myself. Like, I did everything they told me I couldn't do. You're talking about humble yourself. Like, you sound crazy.
Your whole baby.
And then I had to chew that when it was time to birth. Like, I had to hold on to that. Like, you've already told your mother, you told all these people, like, you are magic. Well, be magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then y'all also.
Really magic. Like, the space I remember was magical. And when you went into labor, like, I haven't had this happen again since. And I've been to a lot of births, but I remember, like, I think I had a slight headache or something before coming to your birth. And when I came, I remember, like, laying my head down, like, I'm just, like, close my eyes and, like, this headache is gonna go away. Like, while you were in your intense contraction, then I got super nauseated when you were throwing up. And I'm like, not until when that happened, I was like, maybe I'm laboring with her. Like, I had never had that. And then, like, this song came on. It was a song that I played. Like, I shared on my podcast, like, this story of, like our first, like, termination. We got pregnant a long time ago, and I would play this one song every time. Like, when I was going to, like, I would just drive and play the song, like, for the baby. And the song came on, and I started tearing up. I was like, I can't do it. I'm not a birth. Like, I can't, like, what if the baby decides to come, like, in a minute? I'm not going to be prepared. Like, but I think that was the first time I was like, wow, like, the connection between, like, just how magical the space was. And it was really, like, everything in my body felt it. And it's like, if you have that intention, like when you get pregnant and you set your space like intentional, the people who are there, you ask each of them to be there. It wasn't just like random people coming in your space. It is very magical. Like, it's very spiritual. Like, nothing but the best thing is gonna, happen.
Yeah.
Regardless, like, even with Zola coming out and like scan us for a few seconds, everything was fine. Like, everything was so fine.
Yeah. And so, but even that is like the spiritual connection. Like, every dream I had about birthing, Zola was in her sac, and Zola came out completely quiet.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it happened.
Every dream, she came out quiet. And I didn't like that. Even like in the dreams, like, I would be uncomfortable with that. And then I had to sit in that discomfort. Like, what are you afraid of? Like, babies are supposed to scream. And it's like, you weren't supposed to get pregnant.
Yeah.
So it's like, none of this is what it's supposed to be. And so, Zola came out quiet. And it's like, sis. But immediately you were like, no, I hear her heart. Like, she's breathing. Yeah. She just wasn't, she didn't feel like talking yet.
And when she did, she made noise.
She made, it was amazing sound.
Yep.
So,
you have now breastfed for how long?
It'll be a year and a half on the 6th.
Zola's talking, walking,
cutting up.
Everything.
Such a boss.
And nothing happened. Like, your baby passed. Mm-hmm. You still were mindful of the fibroid. Like,
we were prepared to, like, if there was bleeding, we had shepherds.
Yeah, shepherd's purse.
Shepherd's purse.
The tincture that we had. And
we were prepared for whatever may happen. We were prepared.
And the most important work, I feel like, as a birth worker, what was the most important thing for me was just, like, how do you feel? Like, how do you feel? Like, when do you want to go to the hospital? Because, something could happen and it might seem a little scary. Do you want to go? Because you might get there and nothing's going on. Or I don't want to say, like, well, this is scaring me. I think you should go. So it's not about me. I'm here to support you. Like, if you need to go, I'll help you make that transfer. But when do you want to go? So it was more important for me just knowing, like, what you wanted out of your birth, if you had any fears, like, what are your fears around, like, having this baby and having, the fibroid, like they told you.
You guys held amazing space for me. Like, I really don't remember any true moments of fear. Like, there'll be seconds where I'm, like, cautious.
Yeah.
Or me have, like, a concern, like, will she be able to get past or make it to the canal? But it was never ever like, I'm scared.
Get me out of here. I'm scared.
I
Yeah.
was like, this shit hurts.
Yeah. And I remember like, I can't do it. And I'm like, I don't know, y'all, like for real. And then we would just be quiet, and then the next contraction would come, and you'd be like, no, yeah, for real, I'm not.
Like this, those
like,
contractions really started to whoop my ass. Yeah. But yeah, you guys held like perfect space. Like you let me talk my shit. No one ever made a move to leave. Like, we knew that wasn't happening. But it's like, if this is what she needs to express right now, let her express herself. And it was like, yo,
So yeah,
that was
thank you for
perfect.
sharing that. I think it was. I love stories that start like that when women like stand on their own when they were told by this system that we've been taught for so long to like almost bow down to. Like when they say something, you just do it. And actually, like no, we have our babies are powerful even before they're physically in our wombs. They are very powerful. So she was already kind of teaching you, giving you that lesson before she came. Like, we're not about to do this, like, And the thing is, like, I feel like a lot of times I'm talking, I'm like, the medical system, that like, they can be helpful. They can be like in certain emergency situations, situations where you may not know what's going on. Go see what's going on, but then also use that just for you to know how to move and how you want to, heal yourself. And if you need them or you want to go,
that's an option, but it's not the only.
Right.
And like diet, nutrition, herbs, all of those things make a difference.
They make a big difference.
The medical system, the medicines, all of that is like their version of what naturally occurs in Earth. They wouldn't have penicillin if it wasn't for what the Earth naturally does.
They wouldn't even have the idea, like no, they would not even have the idea for it. And yeah, I think I'm gonna share too. Like, those herbs really helped me. Crystal herbs, like towards the end for this pregnancy. And herbs just work. I think a lot of us just need to know that they work, like believe in them type of thing, right? Because I mean, I don't know. Most of us already grew up on like Lipton tea or something. Like, we don't know. So we hear like tea and herbs, and we're like, oh, okay. I was drinking for 2 days, 3 days, and but it's like we're used to this fast stuff, and most of our problems that come up aren't things that you want them to be fixed. They're not emergent. Like, it needs to be fixed right away. Your body can have time.
And they didn't happen overnight. Like the fibroid didn't show up overnight. Like it grew. So it wasn't gonna disappear. Like I wasn't gonna dispel it and
overnight with a few cups of tea. And just
being aware of that, not expecting or just allowing magic to look like it looks without like a bippity boppity boo expectation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
How was the point? So after you had Zola, when was it like? That's what I just remembered. Like, how was it? So you had her. She didn't expect. She didn't know. Like go into labor and go in. And you didn't do that, and you called her for the follow up or something.
So we already had like because I was hitting 40 weeks when that appointment was. So she wanted to discuss like, I guess, finalized birth plans. So we do the Zoom call. I'm like holding in nursing Zola, and she's like, "That's your baby," and I'm like, "Yeah." I had her about 2-3 days ago. Like, I'm a whole mom now. And she was like, "Well, this appointment could have been canceled." Was her response? This appointment could have been canceled.
So I don't even need to talk to. Basically, we don't need to be talking right now. We don't even need to have any more dealings with each other because you had your baby without me, type of thing. But like, what about that we've been on this like journey of mine, like
together? You don't want me to hold her up. You don't want to didn't ask to see the baby. Nothing. This appointment could have been canceled. And I was just like, okay. And then I was contacted by her nurse probably like a week or so later to like why did I have a baby without coming to the hospital? And I was like, you guys kept saying it would be so painful. I just kept waiting for it to get so painful. And then she was here. You guys kept saying. When I tell you that lady looked at me like, bitch.
But that's even crazy.
But that's
too.
how
Like,
I
why are you
played it.
calling me to ask me why didn't I come to you?
Yeah, but that's how I
Yeah.
played it. Like on the
Yeah.
Zoom, nursing Zola. Like, no, you guys said it would hurt worse than this. It didn't.
And it didn't. And my baby is here. And I'm nursing my baby.
And
that
I
is
didn't
like,
hemorrhage.
oh, it's my favorite thing. Right.
I didn't
I'm
hemorrhage.
crying.
It wasn't crazy amounts of blood. I had the baby drink some tea. My daddy fixed me some food while I laid in my bed, and
you knew, and then afterwards, so you knew all these things. You educated yourself. You knew the things to look out for, like if you have a fibroid, right? I remember before leaving, just telling you, I think like just make sure you wake up or tell Travis to just check your pad every, like if you fall asleep and you're bleeding or whatever. But you already knew these things. Like some of these things are like, I feel like some women may feel like it's something that they can't do. Like I need to go to. You can check your pad and see how much blood has come out, and if you are hemorrhaging, then maybe it's an emergency. Maybe then you can go to the hospital. Yeah. But you knew these things to check, and you did that. You know, you weren't just like this mind, like not caring about these things, and just like, oh, I have my baby at home.
Like it wasn't like apathetic or neglectful. It was just like trusting. Like I trust that my body will do what it's supposed to. And yeah, Travis woke up probably like like I would say like every 3-4 hours to be like like lifting up my sheets and stuff, and I'm like, bruh, like I've been birthing all day, like I'm asleep now, we're asleep. And then because Zola because her placenta was left on, she wasn't hungry. Like, she slept good. She was tired, huh? She slept really good. So we both got some amazing sleep.
Yeah. I just love it. I love it. So you have to go listen to your birth story still on your Instagram, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to listen to her birth story, like just in like the whole thing. I feel like just listening to like the beginning to the end, how you shared it is just beautiful too. In addition to listening to this experience, I think it's really dope.
This is fun. I know. This was super fun.
I want to do more. So yeah. And so yeah, thank you for sharing that experience. I'm gonna find a way.